Have you ever stood among ancient ruins and tried to listen to them? Not to the sound of wind or shifting sand, but to the echoes of thousands of footsteps that once passed through. Echoes of crowded markets, children's laughter, and the commands of kings. Today, only silence remains. Cities that once stood at the center of the world, like Uruk in Sumer or Tikal in the Maya jungle, now sleep beneath the earth as if they had never existed at all. Humans are a curious species. We carry a strange obsession with building something greater than ourselves. We stack stone upon stone, reaching toward the sky with pyramids and temples, as if trying to carve our names into the surface of the earth, hoping they will never fade. But history has a bitter sense of humor. Every stone raised with pride will eventually be taken apart by time. The question is, was it truly time that brought them down? Or were we the ones who quietly removed the foundation stones ourselves? Welcome to HistoraBlend. Tonight, we're not just exploring how great civilizations were built. We're traveling far back in time, following the traces left behind by those who once held power and are now forgotten. We'll witness the grandeur of Sumerian irrigation systems and the remarkable astronomical knowledge of the Maya. But beneath that brilliance, we'll uncover a pattern that's difficult to ignore. That a collapse of a civilization rarely begins with enemies outside the gates, but with ambition and neglect slowly growing inside the palace walls. And the question remains, are we, as modern humans, walking the same path? Let's begin this journey. Before we step further into the past, if this journey brings you a sense of calm or helps you find meaning along the way, you're welcome to join us here at HistoraBlend. Together, we keep these forgotten stories alive. Now, let us return to the very beginning, to the land between two rivers. Thousands of years ago, between two great rivers cutting through the harsh land of Mesopotamia, humans began to write their fate. Sumeria was not merely a collection of huts along a riverbank. It was the first proof of what humans could achieve when they stopped fighting one another and began to work together. They created the wheel. They carved laws into clay tablets. They built irrigation systems that turned dry land into fertile fields. Beneath the shadow of the ziggurat, massive temples that seemed to bridge earth and sky, this society lived in a simple form of harmony. They did not build to display power. They built to survive in a world shaped by unforgiving nature. And that became the strongest foundation of all, necessity and togetherness. Yet the miracle of Sumeria was not only found in monumental structures. Look closer, into the quiet details of their everyday life. There, a scribe presses a reed into soft clay. He is not writing spells or prayers, but recording wheat harvests, livestock counts, and the simple mathematics of survival. This was the moment when human memory learned how to endure, when thought was no longer carried only by voices, but entrusted to marks that could outlive a lifetime. The Sumerians were among the first to understand that building a great civilization required more than strength. It required order, records, continuity. They wrote everything: laws of trade, agreements between people, even complaints about the weight of daily life. On fragile clay, they left something far more permanent than stone, a message to the future, that a civilization is only as strong as the stories it chooses to preserve. Now, let us move to the banks of the Nile, to a land ruled by pharaohs. Here, human ambition rose to an entirely different level. The Great Pyramids stood not only as tombs, but as open challenges to death itself. Thousands of workers moved stone blocks weighing tons with mathematical precision that still astonishes us today. Let us imagine the banks of the Nile at dawn. The vast sea of people moving at the foot of the pyramids were not slaves driven by whips, as myths so often suggest. They were farmers, craftsmen, and architects, people who felt pride in contributing to something greater than themselves. For them, the Nile was the pulse of life, and the pharaoh was not merely a ruler, but the guardian of balance, the keeper of Maat, the order that held the world together. They worked in rhythm with nature itself. When the river flooded, they set stones. When the waters receded, they planted seeds. The true wonder of Egypt was not only the weight of its pyramids, but the extraordinary patience of souls who believed their labor was part of a greater cosmic harmony. They built not only with muscle, but with belief. They believed the structures they raised would keep their names alive forever. In those moments, civilization felt unshakable, eternal, as if no sandstorm, no passage of time could ever bring down what they had created. But history always finds a way to remind us of one truth: nothing is truly eternal. Sumeria and Egypt were two faces of the same coin, humanity's desire to give meaning to its own existence. One focused on order on earth through writing, law, and structure. The other looked upward toward the sky and the promise of eternity. Together, they proved one thing: when humans stop fearing tomorrow, they begin building for thousands of years ahead. But here lies the irony. The grander the structures that rise, the heavier the burden carried by their foundations. And sometimes, the most fragile foundation is not stone, but the human heart itself. As time passed, civilizations no longer spoke only of survival. They began to speak of glory. Deep within the dense forests of Central America, the Maya built magnificent stone cities. They were brilliant observers of the stars, architects who aligned their temples with the movements of planets and time itself. But at the height of their greatness, something began to change. Imagine Mayan astronomers standing atop their pyramids on the quietest nights. To them, time was not a straight line with an ending, but a vast circle, forever turning. They tracked the movement of stars with unsettling precision, trying to read the fate of the world from the night sky. Yet within that brilliance, an irony quietly took root. They became so focused on distant futures that they failed to notice the collapse slowly forming beneath their feet. Believing they had uncovered the secrets of the universe, they gradually lost control of the world right in front of them. Temples grew taller, no longer built to honor the gods, but to glorify rulers. Ambition slowly replaced balance. Forests were stripped bare to fuel construction and burn limestone for decoration. They believed they had conquered nature without realizing that nature was already preparing its reply. Then we climb higher, into the Andes, where the Inca Empire stretched across the clouds. They built wonders where none seemed possible. Roads carved through mountains, terraced fields clinging to steep slopes, a civilization engineered with astonishing precision. Their power felt absolute, untouchable. Yet behind the solid stone walls of Machu Picchu, a familiar illness began to grow, one that haunts many great civilizations: complacency and the hunger for power. The ego of leaders slowly rose above the needs of their people. Ambition to expand territory and civil wars fought for the throne began to fracture foundations that had taken centuries to build. They forgot that the greatness of a structure is not measured by its height, but by the strength of the roots beneath it. And by then, those roots were already beginning to rot. The Inca Empire was, in truth, a masterpiece of human organization. They bound vast territories together with unbroken threads of communication, stretching across mountains and valleys. But immense power often brings a fear just as immense, the fear of losing control. The stone walls of Machu Picchu we admire today, fitted so tightly without a single gap, stand as a symbol of humanity's desire to lock the world into order. Yet history repeats the same lesson. No wall is strong enough to hold back collapse from within. When brotherhood is replaced by betrayal, and the well-being of the people is sacrificed for the throne, the grand roads they once built become nothing more than shortcuts to their own downfall. The fall of a great civilization rarely comes like a sudden explosion. It is more like a candle slowly running out of its wick, or a magnificent building being eaten away by termites from within. One by one, its main pillars begin to crack. Neglecting nature leaves the land unable to feed its people. The ambitions of rulers drain the treasury to fund wars and monuments, and most painfully of all, the trust of the people begins to fade. When a society no longer believes it shares the same purpose, that civilization is already dead, long before the first enemy ever reaches its gates. Imagine the final nights in those once great cities. No celebrations, no music, only despair. Families quietly gather their belongings, leaving behind stone homes that were once symbols of pride, walking toward uncertainty. Forests reclaim their territory, tree roots split sacred altars apart. Desert dust buries libraries filled with thousands of years of knowledge. In a brief moment of history, the greatness of Sumeria, Egypt, the Maya, and the Inca vanishes from the surface of the earth. Those who once felt like gods become nothing more than stories buried beneath the soil. Nature did not destroy them. Nature simply reclaimed its place after humans failed to protect it. After the pillars fell, the world seemed to choose forgetfulness. For centuries, the civilizations that once ruled the earth slept within the arms of nature. Jungles swallowed the Maya temples. Desert sands buried the roads of Sumer. And Andean mist erased the footsteps of the Inca. They were no longer nations, no longer empires. They became fading echoes. Imagine explorers, centuries later, cutting through dense vegetation, only to find a massive stone face staring back at them through tangled vines. Or others digging into the sand, uncovering clay libraries turned to stone by time. In those moments, the world was startled awake. We realized that human greatness can truly vanish, as if we are nothing more than dust in the eyes of time. Yet within the silence of those ruins, one message refused to be buried, something that continues to whisper to anyone willing to listen. That message is not about how great they once were, but about how fragile we are today. Now we return to the present. We stand on foundations not so different from theirs. We build skyscrapers taller than the pyramids and create networks more complex than the roads of the Inca. But when we look closely at history, are we truly different? We are still driven by the same ambitions. We still neglect the natural world that sustains us, and we still allow ego to fracture the harmony we worked so hard to build. History is not just a collection of dates and fallen names. It is a quiet warning that every civilization which believes itself invincible is often standing at its most fragile point. Perhaps the success of a civilization is not measured by how grand its monuments were, but by how long it could preserve humility and gratitude in the midst of progress. Tonight, as the world outside remains loud with ambition, let these ancient stories serve as a reminder that whatever we build today will only endure if it is shaped with awareness, not with greed. We are the authors of the next chapter. Will we repeat the same cycle, or will we become the first civilization to learn from the silence of past ruins? Thank you for accompanying this journey with HistoraBlend. Rest well, and let history guard your dreams. Until the next story.